Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I wanted to take a moment. I haven't posted in a few weeks. I wanted to just give you a little update of what's happening. I went back to work the week of September 10th for half days just to see how my body was going to respond after the strictures. Were fully dilated to 18 millimeters mercury pressure. And that doctor said if I had any more problems to come back and he would dilate to 20. And so I did my first week, of half days and seemed okay. But I had already started to have a little bit of pain return. And I was just like, well, let's just kind of see if it gets worse or not during those half days. Because pain is, you have to kind of be realistic. Like, what is your life going to be like? We don't know. It's uncharted territory. I have no idea how this is going to play out. So I was just hoping that it it could stay mild or maybe be managed by medication or something like that. And I was taking Flexeril and Tramadol at the time, but I ended up starting to take them much more often. So the pain was ramping up. And then the second week, I got through Monday through Wednesday, or maybe it was Tuesday and Wednesday. I think I had a day off because I actually ended up working that weekend, the first week I was back. And but anyway, come Thursday, I was in a lot of pain and I was up all night again with the pain. It wasn't as bad as it was originally before I even knew I had a stricture, but it was just, this is getting intolerable. And then went through. I called my medical leave and wanted to reinstate it. Called my doctor so I can get an appointment and talk about reinstating the leave because I don't want to be unpredictable for my team. If I'm going to be there, I want to be there. So if I'm just on leave, then just expect me not to be there. That's better than this back and forth and everybody's in, anxiety mode and is she going to show up today, etc. I want to be there. I want you to know um, if you can rely on me or not. And if you can't rely on me, then I need to be on leave and I just need to be taken off the schedule. And that's kind of how I felt. Like I felt like it was just going in the wrong direction. So I called my leave, I called my doctor, got an appointment, had a terrible pain through the weekend. And then come Monday, I was like, I can't do this. I can't like wait for an appointment or whatever. I need help again. Like this is not okay. And so I went to the emergency room on Monday, just earlier this week, and ended up admitted because they can now see that I have a file and they can see my notes and they can see what's going on. So when I go to the emergency room and they say I have rectal pain, they'll know exactly, what they could be looking at and why that could be happening. And they did, and so they did all the tests and whatnot, and then got admitted. And um, the next day I was on a liquid diet, and then I did bowel prep over the night and prepared for another flex sigmoidoscopy more than likely, but I think they prepared me for a colonoscopy just in case, what if it was something else? I don't know. They just fully prepared the bowel for whatever. And they found that the stricture started to close. And that's was very frustrating. And, I was scared leading up to this. I was feeling defeated. I was feeling very hopeless because the pain was starting to return. I didn't know if I could live this way or not. It's really, really terrible, awful pain. You can't sit down. We have something called the pain scale, and it's really just a ratings of perceived pain. It's the subjective view of the pain. That's really the only way to rate the pain is how do you feel. And it goes on a 1 to 10 scale. 1 is like mild, or 0 would be no pain. I have no pain. That's great. 1 is mild. Yeah, I can feel it. Like right now, I'm in a 1. I can feel something, but I'm sitting, I'm fine, whatever. And 10 is like holding your hand in fire. So if you are lit on fire, that's a 10. It's like, whoa, this is excruciating. Like, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced a burn, I've had second degree myself as a child. It's terrible. And when you're burned, you know how it doesn't stop burning. It takes a while for that sting to go away. That's a 10. And I would say my pain was going up to like 7 and 8. Like I was in the hospital the first time, like eyes closed, shaking, and the nurse is like, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna get you another dose of pain medication, because I could barely even like communicate with her because I was in so much pain, and I was still only rating it like an 8, even though maybe it was 9 or something. But seriously, 10 is like on fire. So anyway, I'm in the hospital, and when I don't have pain, because my pain like isn't constant, it comes in waves, it comes and goes, and I have no rhyme or reason why. The only thing I do know is it does come and go all the time without a reason, and it also comes when I start to eat. So as soon as I wake up my digestive system with something to eat or drink, I start to feel pain, because my digestive system, that's the way it's supposed to work. You ingest and the whole thing wakes up. We got to move things along because something else is coming in. But I also have it outside of eating and drinking things, these waves of pain, and there's just no rhyme or reason to why they're happening. So I ended up getting that flex sigmoidoscopy. He found that it was starting to close. I asked him, well, how much did it close? He's like, it's hard to say, but probably to a 12 or 13. And originally, when I went into the hospital the first time for this, it was at a 10. So it went from 18 to 12 to 13. So it significantly reduced, and that makes sense with like how I was kind of feeling it. It was like closing, getting worse, getting worse. I can't take it anymore. We got to go to the hospital. And so what he told me was that he injected it with, so when he opened it back up to 18, and then he injected it with a steroid, and I could put it in the notes in the description of this episode what the steroid actually was. But what it does is it stops your body from, and I'll correct this in the description, but I know it stops it from producing like elastin and fibrogen and collagen to stop it from closing, because it feels like it's a wound and it wants to close the wound. I mean, that's what your body does. It wants to heal you, so it thinks it needs to close it. That hurts me. And so he put that in there, and I didn't know what any of this was. I happened after, today's Friday, so yesterday when I was feeling a little bit better, because I was literally up for 2 days, pooping at night. I was barely functioning on Wednesday. They knocked, before they even did the procedure, I was knocked out with propofol, a sedative, and oh my goodness, I was not with it. I was super out of it. So just from being up all night, one night in pain, awaiting my procedure, going to the bathroom every 30 minutes, and then the next night up all night doing bowel prep. They had a system outage and couldn't get my bowel prep to me until 8 p.m. So I was up all night doing my bowel prep. That's exciting. But I was just like, ugh, on Wednesday. So yeah, I had no education about this. And so yesterday, when I was finally starting to feel better, I was like, let me look up some of this. He said he injected it. I don't know what's going on. I found a research article that was for the esophagus. That's when you eat, your food, it goes into your mouth and then down your esophagus and into your stomach. So that's the upper part of your digestive system, right? When you eat. A lot of times these strictures happen up there, and I don't know why, because that's not what I have going on. It's actually not as common for it to happen in the rectum, but the reason it's happening is because of an anastomosis. And what I read from this research article was that anastomosis happens to close. It's harder to treat. So if it's just some kind of stricture for some other reason, they're easier to pop back open. But when it's a surgical anastomosis, we took something out and reconnected it. That is a lot harder to treat as far as a stricture. So they use this steroid and they inject it, and it has been helpful to keep these strictures from closing. And in this article, again, in the upper GI tract, it was talking about maybe repeating this procedure up to 8 times. And I mean, that's the upper GI. I don't know what's going to go on down there, but just to know that these strictures, these anastomotic strictures can be repeated, balloon dilation up to 8 times, made me feel hopeful because I just thought my body is failing, my body is failing. But to have that piece of education gave me such peace of mind to know, oh, this is how this goes. I don't have to be so worried right now, because it's the fourth one. We're really early in this dilation process. And if it keeps closing, they'll keep trying to pop it open and putting that steroid around it to try to make it stop doing that, stop trying to close. And the way I describe it is, you remember from childhood that game, or even that movie, A Christmas Story, where they take the kid's arm and they pull it up his back. It's called a bully will take your arm up your back and say uncle, say uncle. That's what I feel like we're doing with this balloon dilation, is we're just trying to like beat it into submission, say uncle, and just give up. And I really hope my colon gives up and just accepts it. Because now that I've read this research article, I have some more questions, like what is going to happen in the long run? They just generally told me we're just trying to avoid surgery right now. So in a different situation, if the stricture was higher in the colon, so away from the rectum, if it was higher in the colon, they could stent it and pop it open. But because it's only 8 centimeters away from the rectum, the stent will be like hanging in the rectum, and you can't stent it at this location. So that would be another option for somebody that had it higher in the colon, maybe not the sigmoid, maybe like the descending or transverse or something like that. They can stent it open and pop it open, but not in my situation. So I don't know what the next step would be. I have some fears and some concerns about what the next step would be. And I have a follow up with my gastroenterologist. I call short term GI, call him gastroenterology, a GI doctor, in the middle of October. And so I have some questions to ask about what would I be looking at long term, if like how many times are we going to balloon this? How many times, until we move to the next step, which I don't want to do because that's going to be surgery, but I want to know what it could be. The other thing that I've done is I've reached out to start an appointment just for knowledge base of looking at a colorectal surgeon. I want to meet with a colorectal surgeon because I've been reaching out to my gynecology oncology and they don't have really anything for me. They're like, go to pain clinic and go to pelvic PT. And I'm like, that's not going to cut it because it's not working, at least not yet. And the dilations aren't sticking yet. But he did just introduce that steroid, so I'm hopeful. But what colorectal surgeons are is they're essentially cancer surgeons for the colon, as far as I understand. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is that they live in this very small space of colon and rectum. And that's the problem that I have from my surgery. So I want to ask them, what are you doing for your patients? And what about the nerves? And what kind of therapies and interventions are you offering your patients with these kind of problems? I mean, they live in this small world of colon and rectum. They just specialize in that area. So I feel like they're going to have just a little bit more information for me. My GI doctor wasn't really impressed with this idea. He thought maybe gyn-oncology would be better, and I'm like, yeah, I completely disagree. But they live in the gyn world, and yeah, they're general surgeons as well. But when you have a specific type of surgeon that deals with this kind of thing, they're gonna have. I just disagree with him. I think that's the better route to go. So here I am as an educated woman, as a nurse, advocating for myself. I could not imagine being a layperson and not knowing how the system works. Even in the emergency room, I was waiting for 4.5 hours, which is, I've worked at a level 1 trauma before, and I know that those people have sat in there for way longer than 4.5 hours, so it doesn't really surprise me. But for our small community, that's a long wait. And people had been called that were, I call myself a walkie-talkie. I can walk, I can talk, I'm pretty stable. So all the other walkie-talkies in the emergency room that were just like me were turning over twofold, and I wasn't getting called to go back. And when me or my family went to try to understand the situation, we got brushed off, and I wasn't happy with that. But because the place was under construction, on a side, they had another nurse where these people wouldn't normally be sitting, had another nurse over there just in case of emergency, if they needed something. So I went over to that nurse and I was like, it's obviously very chaotic in here with the construction and whatnot. And, I respect that, there's different levels of care based on what you're coming in for. I said, but could you please help me understand? I've seen the emergency room turn over a couple times, and people just in a similar state of stability as I am, maybe even more stable, have gone before me. And now I'm in an emergency room with all these brand new people, and now they're going before me. I just want to see where I'm lying in the scheme of things. And she goes, well, you are the longest waiting patient. And she said, there are a couple of people that are scheduled before you. She was like, let me go ask my charge. And so next thing you know, they called my name. They were not triaging me correctly. I was just getting passed and passed and passed. I mean, I probably could have went back another 2 hours earlier, but because I know how the system works and I know how to talk to people, I was able to get in and get my answer. But it's hard to do that when you're the sick one. It's really difficult to do. So I guess my thought is, be open-minded and listen. I know people come up to that emergency room front desk in all sorts of moods and all sorts of attitudes, but when someone is being kind and they're trying to advocate for their family member, hear them. Hear them. Ignore the emotion and hear what they're asking for, and just try to take a moment to digest it and say, you know what, maybe there is something I can do. Can I do something? Can I really? Because they feel, they need to be heard, and they need to know that their family is being taken care of. So that's a very important lesson for anybody that's listening. Just in hearing my message, just try to listen. Ignore how they're saying it and listen to what they're saying. And is there a possibility to make this situation better? Is it possible? Even if it's just re-education. But just pause and just have that moment. And I think, more people are going to get the help that they need, or at least feel better, because that stress makes the whole system worse. So we don't want to do that. We want to help them. And that was my situation. So I was in the hospital for 2.5 days, and I got out late Wednesday afternoon. Finally slept my butt off, and then yesterday I had a follow-up appointment with pain clinic. They're basically just treating my pain. They don't care about my. They do not care about. It's so funny. It's just like the system as a whole, but they do not care about my stricture. They're just like, what about your pain? And they just want to treat the pain, and they're going to treat it with medications. And they're trying not to treat it with opiates, which I was really excited about. I don't want to do those kind of drugs. We have a history of addiction in our family. It's not something I'm interested in acquiring for my health history, addiction. So I try not to use it. And I use the least amount as possible, but you still have to stay ahead of the pain or it gets really bad. So yeah, it just not really super impressed with the system as a whole. I think I was missing some education. I think I understand why. The doctor that does my procedure is the only doctor that works in the lower part of the body as far as ballooning, and he works on some of the more difficult cases. So he's the only one. He's an interventionalist. He doesn't have clinical hours. He doesn't have a nurse. I don't even think he has a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, or answering my chart. I just feel like he's not well supported, and so he gives very minimal education. That's a problem, because I was feeling hopeless. I was feeling like, what is happening? Why is my body failing? And I found it to be so much more extreme. And then I found that research article and I'm like, that would have been nice to know. I feel better now. I'm not worried now. I know what to expect now. I, yeah. So it was just a big gap in it. It's a system problem. He's a great interventionalist. I really like him. He does explain things. He takes time out to talk to the patient, but he's not proactive in thinking about education. He's just like, let's get to the bottom of this, answer the question, go to the intervention. He's got a lot to do. So empathy, but also problem in the system, not problem with the doctor, problem with the system. So that's where I've been. That's what I've been doing, and I feel so much more at peace knowing how this could go. I have a follow up with my primary care on Monday. We'll see what we come up with as far as a plan, what his thoughts are, and excited to see the colorectal surgeon. That's going to be probably coming up next week too, to see what other kind of interventions they have for people in my situation, talking about the nerves, etc. I see my gastro later on in the month. I see my gynecologist later in the month. Appointments left and right. This is hard to manage, and this is why people need medical leave, because it's just here and there, and here and there, and here, and it's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to juggle, and I don't know. We'll see where this goes. I'm happy I have the interventionalist that I have. I just From all of my doctors, I would have liked a little bit more education to put my mind at ease, as opposed to don't just repeat the plan. Explain it. Explain why it's happening the way it happens. Explain a possible outcome. Like, this may take a long time. This may take 8 to 10 times. That's okay. Just explain it. It helps people know what to expect. The fear is in the unknown. So if we educate our people, then they know, and then they can relax a little. That'll be better on their system for healing. So everybody, have a great Friday. Take care. I'll try to keep you posted. Prayers are encouraged and accepted with love. Thank you so much. And until next time.